So hello again from the main stage of Touch. So today we had really very intensive day. And now it's time to think about balance, some balance between life and work, about our mental health and struggles that we have right now. So I want to invite all of you to the chat kindly organized by our old friend, Sebastien from NextWeb. And right now, I don't want to talk more about this, and I just want to present Seb, and he will continue and present these great people with him. So, Sebastien, stage is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks for having me. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from. I think both of our speakers had to get up early this morning as they're in the US. I'm here in Belgium welcoming you all, and it's really a pleasure to be able to dedicate some time to this important topic. So today we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness and well-being and sort of all of the things that go around this topic that has been in the news lately and that I think is more important than ever. We'll talk about what it is, how you can possibly use it both in your personal as well as in your private life, and sort of like talk a little bit about example in which you can be more mindful and what are the things that you can do to sort of include a little bit more mindfulness in your life. And in order to do that, I'd love to welcome our two speakers. So I have the pleasure to have Parneet Pal and Adam Hofmann with me here today to be able to talk about this. Now, Parneet is a physician by training, but she spent the last 7 years as Chief Science Officer of Wisdom Labs, which makes her, I think, the perfect individual to be talking about this topic and sort of bring a little bit of the scientific flair around what mindfulness is. And Adam has done a bunch of different things in his career, starting with project manager, consulting, spent 4 years at Singularity University, and recently became the owner of Cedar Park Studio in Texas. So I would love to give them the floor to introduce themselves just a little bit past their title. And then after that, we'll dive straight into the topic. Parneet, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much, Seb. Great to be here with you and Adam. And hello, everyone. As Seb mentioned, I'm the Chief Science Officer at Wisdom Labs, and we're a San Francisco-based company that's solving for stress, burnout, and loneliness in the workplace using the science of mindfulness, resilience, and compassion. So essentially, our aspiration is to scale mental, emotional, and social well-being in the workplace. By way of background, I am a physician by training, and my area of expertise is lifestyle medicine. So that means how do we optimize many different aspects of our lifestyle, what we eat, how we move, how we sleep, but most importantly, I think how we manage our stress. And for me personally, I think this is really important, not just to become the best version of ourselves, but it's also really important in the way that we show up at work and the impact that we have on our community and our planet.
Great.
Amazing.
What about you, Adam?
Well, first off, it's great to, I guess I can't see all of you, but I imagine the you out there in the world, and feel incredibly grateful to be able to spend what's my Saturday morning with you, coming from Austin, Texas, here in the US. And yeah, so I mean, background wise, Seb did a pretty good job, just mixing it all together. I've been some combination of consultant, entrepreneur, intrapreneur, most recently opened up a fitness studio here in Austin called Bar 3 with my wife, and am working on a number of other initiatives right now related to mental health. So when the opportunity came up to talk and explore this topic with Sebastien and Parneet, I was very, very excited. And I'll share a little bit more about my personal journey with mental health, I think here in a little bit. So let's just jump in.
Fantastic. Well, now that the intros are done, let's dive straight into the topic. And I think for a lot of the people tuning in today that are not so familiar with mindfulness, it might be useful to sort of level the playing field and explain a bit about what we're really talking about. And Parneet, do you want to tell us a bit more about what mindfulness actually is?
Sure, Seb. And, I'll start by saying that there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding around what mindfulness and meditation is. And I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience right now are wondering, this is a technology conference. Why the hell are we talking about mindfulness and meditation? What does that have to do with how I show up as an entrepreneur or investor, or maybe, anybody who's trying to grow a business or company? And what I would say is that actually never before has there been a more important time to pay attention to our mental health and to be mindful and to investigate how meditation can help us to do that. So I just want to to set the stage a little bit, because, as we go into our work every single day, unfortunately, what we're finding is that we are facing what's been called a global cognition crisis. So what this means is that when it comes to our mental health and well-being, it's the worst state that we've ever been in, unfortunately. So what we're finding is that, based on the different challenges and crises that we're facing, we don't have the required coping strategies. And then the technology that we're being exposed to and the media that we're being exposed to is just being designed in such a way that it's affecting our attention span. So you might have noticed, all of you, that you're increasingly distracted. It's really easy to get overwhelmed with all the information around us. But then, very importantly, especially for entrepreneurs and in the tech industry, anxiety rates are increasing, depression rates are increasing, loneliness is at an all-time high, and unfortunately, suicide rates are at an all-time high as well. And not only does this have an impact on our mental health, but obviously this impacts the rest of our lifestyle. And what we're finding, this is a very alarming trend, not just here in Silicon Valley, but globally, is that we're finding that, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, all these lifestyle-related diseases that used to happen in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we're finding that it's happening now in our 20s, and our 30s, and our 40s. So I say all that just to set up the importance of why we should be paying attention to our mental health and our physical health. But now for the good news, which is that when we train our minds using, and you can think of mindfulness and meditation simply as one way to train our mind. The past 25 years of neuroscience research has shown that when you practice for just 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, something absolutely amazing happens in our brain networks. And this is because our brains, even right now, as we're all listening to this conversation, the connections in our brain are responding to what we're hearing, what we're saying, the stimuli in our environment. And this kind of changeability in the brain is called neuroplasticity. So our brain networks are really dynamic. They respond to the environment. And with mindfulness and meditation, essentially what we're doing is we're directing that neuroplasticity in a positive way. We're directing that neuroplasticity in a way that strengthens 3 important networks in the brain. So our attention networks get strengthened. And what that means is that, when you're at work, when you're building your company, when you're faced with a crisis, even though everything is chaotic around you, you become the person in the room who can stay calm in the face of that stress, who can stay focused, who can be really productive, who can tap into your best ideas. And then what's not well known in the general population is that the strength of our attention is intimately tied to our emotional regulation networks. So this means that when we strengthen our mindfulness, we also get really good at managing difficult emotions. And we're all experiencing that right now, right? So fear, anxiety, loneliness, feeling disconnected or depressed. How do you navigate these difficult emotions? Well, when we practice and train our attention networks, it helps with that emotional regulation. Again, really important to build relationships with our team members and with our clients and our customers. And then the third network in the brain that gets strengthened is what's called our pro-sociality networks. And these are the networks that help us to be kind, to be generous, to be empathic, to be compassionate, to think about the people around us, to think about our planet as we think about the strategies for our organizations. So those are the networks that get strengthened. And I hope that everyone who's listening is sort of getting excited about, I want to do that. I want to practice. But the benefits don't end there, because mindfulness has a direct impact on our health. It helps to reduce the inflammation that's caused by stress in our cells, and it helps to boost our immunity, really important right now in the time of COVID. And it also helps us to stick to healthy habits. And I know we're going to dive into healthy habits in a bit. So those are the benefits, but what is mindfulness and what is meditation? So very simply, mindfulness is a quality of self-awareness that we bring into any moment. So mindfulness means that we keep our breath, our body, our thoughts and emotions in mind in any given moment. And the way that you can tell if you're being mindful in any moment, so you can be mindful during a conversation, you can be mindful when you're eating your food, you can be mindful in a team meeting. There are two things to pay attention to. The first one is, what is the quality of your attention? So even now, everybody can do a quick check. Are you paying attention to this conversation, or has your mind drifted off thinking about something in the past or planning something in the future? And if it has, that's okay. That's completely normal. But with mindfulness, we train our attention to keep coming back to the present moment. And there's a certain quality of the attention. You know, it's not like a forced or a strained kind of attention. There's a sense of openness and kindness and curiosity. And this is really important because we don't want to push away or suppress anything difficult that might be coming up in the present moment. We want to be accepting of everything that comes up. So the first thing is, are you paying full attention? And then the second thing is, what do you do with the information that's coming up when you pay attention? And so with mindfulness, we learn to respond skillfully, which means we don't react in an autopilot conditioned way, but we learn from our previous experiences and we respond skillfully. And then very quickly, you know, meditation is simply a technique. So meditation means becoming familiar with your mind. And there are many, many different meditation techniques, and we can use meditation to train our mindfulness. So I know that that's a lot. I hope that helps to sort of set the stage for why this is important. And as I said, you know, the research shows that when we're mindful, we're actually more likely to stick to healthy habits. So we're more likely to eat better and sleep better and exercise more. But and I know we're going to talk about our healthy habits, but before that, I know that both of you, Seb and Adam, you have really interesting personal stories around what happens when you don't pay attention to healthy habits. So would love to hear about that. Adam, do you want to start off?
Yeah, happy to. I wish that everything that you just said was so nice and succinct. Like, I wish I would have heard that 10 years ago. But I also wonder if I had heard that 10 years ago, if it would have actually made a difference. And what I've really learned on my journey, which I'll share a little bit more about, is like, it's all about figuring what's going to work with you. And mindfulness, meditation, being present, like, you know, there's so many different words and phrases. They all have very good definitions and they're backed by research. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, what's going to work for you to help you kind of find that centering. So my journey with my mental health really started, I'd say, like 6 to 8 years ago. I think 8 years ago. Yeah, 2012. I wasn't in a great place, and things just felt off, and I started doing what had usually worked for me in the past, and that was like, you know, going outside, hanging out with friends. Except I started maybe drinking a little bit more. I started, maybe I'll try smoking some weed. I'll smoke marijuana. And then I realized that wasn't really making a difference, and I was doing a whole lot more of it. And so at that time, I was like, I have this like tightness across my chest that feels like debilitating, and like my stomach's always off. Like, I think I have these problems. And so I started going to see the doctor. And, you know, I'll be maybe more detailed than you need, but, you know, I got a colonoscopy, like looked at my stomach, and like, everything looks pretty good. Like, maybe it's a little inflamed. Is there anything wrong with my heart or my lungs? No, that's pretty good. And then I ended up seeing this one doctor, and he's like, I think you're dealing with some depression and anxiety, man. Here's some pills. I was like, great, I'll try these things, but antidepressants, like some people in my family have been on those, and how I feel about it. But okay, I'll give it a shot. And the antidepressants helped. They kind of evened me out, and gave me the opportunity to see like, oh, maybe there's a lot of things that actually are right here. My job, my relationship, my lifestyle of this just like hustle, you know, work as long as you have to get your startup to work. And, you know, at that time, I think I was drinking Monsters, which I just had to stop drinking energy drinks. But then I went to cold brew and like none of that stuff, you know, and I wasn't working out. I wasn't eating healthy because like, you got to make that startup work. You got to make the relationship work. And so then eventually, I think the thing that changed my life the most in that moment was I started seeing a therapist. And therapy isn't for everybody, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely something worth exploring when I noticed the stuff about myself. And my therapist started giving me these coping skills and started giving me these exercises and these techniques that, you know, Parneet was sharing earlier. And it really made a huge difference to the point where I could take myself off of the medication. And at that point in time, I realized I was going to change my whole life completely. I was in a relationship that I'd been in for 5 years. I was about to get married in a month and called off the wedding, broke up with my then fiance at the time, quit my job, and was like, all right, I just need to restart. And so for me at that point, it was a pretty hard, aggressive, like, you know, turn. And so then I went and found my next thing, sort of rebuilding myself, these new healthy habits. And then more recently, I found myself in burnout again, except this time around, I was able to notice it before it got to the extent that it was last time. And I got a little bit better. And now, you know, I've kind of been back on that journey of rebuilding what's really true for me. And we'll talk about those habits. I'm so excited to dig into that, because I think one thing that I've learned is that there's so much of this information out there. What's true for you, what's going to work for you, you really have to figure it out. And, you know, we'll share in a little bit, like, kind of how I've done that for myself. But Seb, you want to share your personal story next?
Yeah, sure. More than happy to. First of all, thanks for sharing that. I think it's not the kind of things that are so openly shared in these kind of settings or conferences before, and I think it does help. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring both of you for this talk to be able to discuss this is that a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh yeah, but that's not me, you know, that's other people. Like, maybe they're building their company and they're not doing it right, and then they get into burnout. Like, I've got my stuff together. Like, I'm not going to fall into that trap. And I've seen, like, you know, with the number of startups and sort of founders that I've had the pleasure to work with in the last 5 years, literally hundreds of companies from across the world, you can see that those patterns keep creeping in. Like, we're sort of in an industry when we talk about technology that sort of pushes you to be faster, more innovative, come up with new things all the time, you know, increasing growth. And I'd say it's a bit of a vicious cycle, because this is what the sort of venture industry has been pushing, right? You raise a round of funding and then you need to grow to get to your next round, and you need to grow faster to get to the next one. And sort of it never stops. And unless you have people around you that can help to shield you from that, or that have gone through depression, or have gone through burnout, and can actually sort of like flag those things early, then you're sort of going to be more prone to be repeating this. And one of the reasons why I sort of wanted to flag this and sort of became aware of those things around myself personally is with a lot of colleagues, people that I work with, that, you know, we're having beers on Friday night, like everybody does, because that's what Friday drinks are all about in every other office around the world, and particularly in Amsterdam. And, you know, it starts with a couple of drinks at 5-6 p.m. to we've been drinking all night until midnight, to, oh, we're actually going to grab a drink on a Wednesday because, you know, we had a really tough day at work and it's 5 o'clock and we can definitely, grab a drink. And then next thing you know, you're sort of grabbing a beer every other day. And then I was like, okay, there's something off here. I see a lot of people around me, myself included, having drinks more and more often, because I go to all those networking drinks and all of those events, which the industry is for. And, you know, everybody tells you your network is your net worth. And the more you have people around you and the more you have quality people around you, the better off you're going to be. But then it doesn't mean that every time you go to one of those networking events, you got to take a drink, right? It doesn't mean that every time you need to leave last at 11 or at midnight and go home and keep working and do a few emails until you go to bed and end up with 6 hours of sleep. Because the thing is, that kind of stuff works for a while, but at some point it really grinds you down. And that's something that I've realized, and that I've sort of ended up falling sort of prey to. It was like, keep working always harder, right? Not say no to all of those meetings or those invitations that comes with the job. And then in the end, always say yes to everyone. Try to be the nice person that wants to be on top of his things. And next thing you know, you don't have time for the things that are most important in life and the things that kind of help you to stay healthy, which I think is a huge issue. And sort of without a bit of a reset or discussions with people around me who care about myself and said, hey, you should maybe pay attention to this. Like, we've noticed that you tend to always be working at night or be working weekends or not available for your family and friends or these kind of things. And I was like, hey, maybe they're right. Maybe I should pay attention to this. And that's sort of the things that I wanted to sort of bring across. But maybe it's interesting to talk about sort of the things that you've both experienced, and Parneet as well, in your own personal life. Being someone who is sort of a professional in that area doesn't sort of shield you from being affected by it in any ways. Like, what are the things that you've implemented in your life when you start to realize that you're on that sliding scale?
Yeah, sure. So I think, I've been through burnout as well, so I'm not immune to any of this. It was at the end of my medical residency when I was feeling really burnt out, and because unfortunately, in medical school they don't teach you how to take care of yourself, and prevention is not something that's talked about. For me, I think personally, because I've been in this field, I find that it's easy for me to meditate every single day. I'm very particular about, my plant-based diet that I eat. I'm very particular about sleeping. And these are, it takes time. It's not sort of like a one and done thing, the one thing about behavior change that I think it's really important for folks to remember is that behavior change does not happen like this. It's not a smooth graph. Behavior change happens like this. Right? You start a new habit and then you fall off the wagon. Then you start off again and you fall off the habit. And I think, Seb, you pointed to something really important there, which is the importance of community and supportive people around you. So I think for everybody who's listening, find that community, find the people who will stick with you and support you in those habitual changes. And so for me, my challenge with habits has always been around exercise and trying to stick to that. And recently, during coronavirus, I found indoor rowing, and I found a great community. I found this great community of people, and also the technology that we use. There's a rowing app that sort of gives me my progress, which is very motivating. So for me, that's been really helpful. So I've been, engaging in that exercise in a more consistent way.
I love all those things, and I feel like I probably have a similar set of things. Which the more that I talk to people about this, it seems like there's this stack of your community, your inputs, your routines and rituals, which usually involve some combination of your physical activity, your mental training and awareness, and what into your body. But I think to build on that a little bit, these things are going to happen. I think every single person on this panel, we've been through burnout. We've been through some form of anxiety. We've been sad at some point. And it's okay. It happens to all of us. And the thing that Seb kept saying over and over again that I wrote down was pay attention. That's the difference, right? Is when you go through life and you're not paying attention, you're in your startup, you're working on your business, and you're just grinding it out. And that's all that you're paying attention to. You forget about all these other things that ultimately determine how successful you can be working on your startup. It's just not sustainable to be working 10, 12, 14-hour days. I think I read somewhere, and Parneet probably knows better than I do, but we've got 6 really productive hours in the day. It's maybe. And that's assuming that you can actually focus and pay attention. And so kind of the cycle that I've thought about with my feelings, or how I am, is first is awareness, right? It's that paying attention, I'm feeling this. Then it's to be able to, now that you're aware, is to have that curiosity to say, okay, where is this coming from? What might be driving this? And really explore it in a very open way. Don't judge yourself. There's no right or wrong. Just see what comes up for you. And then you really, at that point in time, you've given yourself the option to make a choice of okay, do I want to keep feeling this way? Or do I want to try a few things that might help me not feel this way, because this way that I am right now, it's just actually not that helpful now that I've explored it. Then you get, down the fun path of habit change, which, looks more like this than that nice straight line of change. So for me, what's been the biggest game changer is I figured out this morning routine. And for me, it looks like, maybe this TMI, but shower. Shower is a very nice wake me up sort of a thing. Then I do my time of mindfulness. Happy to share more later on about how I found the right mindfulness meditation for me. I journal. Journal's been I just get my thoughts out, and then I walk my dog. So if I've done those 4 things, like the chance of me having an awesome day has gone up, exponentially. And then the other thing that I'll say is like to really be intentional about choosing those inputs in my life. And that's inputs like information. I don't have Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram on my phone anymore. Like I chose to not have those inputs controlling me. Like I choose when I want to consume that stuff. Same thing with Slack, or whatever your chat program is in email. Choose when you want that information. Choose what you're going to put into your body, what you're going to eat. I had a cheeseburger last night because, I chose to have a cheeseburger last night. And, I feel fine this morning, but if I have a cheeseburger every night, it might not feel as great. And then also, choosing that activity and those people that you're going to surround yourself with. So just plus oneing all those recommendations. Great. Should we talk about technology? That can maybe help, like what's the role of technology in all of this, given that it can control us, but maybe it can also help us?
Yeah, sure. I can take a stab at that. And I just want to emphasize a few, for folks who are listening who might be thinking, oh God, like this is one other thing you're telling me to do now. I have 40 things on my list. So here, please take heart, because the return on investment of remember I said it only takes like 5, 10, or 15 minutes of practice every day. You can literally start with even just a minute of practice. You can start with some deep breathing. There are many, talking about technology, there are many meditation mindfulness apps out there that you can play with. But the key here is to set your intention. What is my intention here? And for most of us, it's like we want to have impact in the world. We want to do something meaningful with our lives. And then if you track back to say, okay, if that's my intention, what are the conditions that will allow me to show up fully to be able to have that kind of impact? And then when you think about the 5, 10, or 15-minute investment in training your mind, just like you exercise your body, you can train your brain networks. And I think what's really cool is that you start to see the returns pretty quickly. Even after research shows that even after a 10-minute practice, you immediately feel that sense of calm and increased productivity. And so imagine how that would multiply with consistent practice. And when it comes to emotions, what Adam was speaking to and what Seb was mentioning as well, I think, how cool would it be? Think about it. If you are the person on your team or in your company who is not, who can identify their difficult emotions without being identified with them, and not sort of be at the mercy of your emotions every single time, but to be in control. And I know that that's something that entrepreneurs like a lot, to be in control and to sort of be the drivers of their destiny. So think of this as just sort of one other, ammunition in your armor to be able to do that. And then with technology, I think, 2 important benefits, whether it's wearables you use or an app that you use, is one is it helps you to give data and feedback, which can be really motivating. To see that you're progressing is very helpful. And the other use of technology is, I think, if you can find a community, and that sense, even maybe sometimes a sense of competition on, like leaderboards and challenges and whatever else on the device that you might be using, that's very motivational as well. But I think finding a community of practice with mindfulness meditation or any other healthy habit that you're trying to find is kind of key. It can actually make or break your habit. So I would say those are the main benefits.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for that, both Adam and Parneet. I think I couldn't agree more with regards to how technology can actually help us to be more mindful, and what are the tools that you can use. If you all in the audience are interested, I'll be sharing with the organizers later on, and then also you can reach out to me with regards to tools that you can use to help be more mindful. I think we've talked with Parneet and Adam about, sleep apps that can help you, or wearables, whether it's Aura or Sleep Cycle. There's definitely the ones that everybody knows, like Calm and Headspace, that are really helpful. But there's a lot of other tools, from sort of being able to have an online journal or an online way of keeping track of your morning habits. Notion's an amazing tool for that, and there's others out there. Or whether we're sort of talking about tips from certain books that can help you to be more mindful. Talking about building those habits, and Adam, who started talking about stacking habits, like in Atomic Habits by James Clear, or whether you're talking about The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. I think there's a lot of really good things in there. that can definitely help to sort of being able to bring those incremental changes, not thinking that you have to change radically from one day to another and sort of be able to do it for hours on end, but sort of find what works for you and incrementally be consistent with your practice in being more mindful. So I think that's really important. And it's a journey for everyone. Like, remember to be kind to yourself, to understand that not every day is going to be up. Some days are going to be down, and that it's okay as well to be able to understand where you are and how you can move forward. On that note, I'd like to thank so much Adam and Parneet for taking the time, for getting up so early to be discussing this important topic with all of us, and for the team at Digital Touch for having us.
Thank you, Sebastien. Thank you, Parneet. Thank you, Adam. Again, thank you, Sebastien, for helping to organize this chat. It was very interesting to listen about that important topic and to listen the ideas, all of you. We were here in studio listening to you, and it was really great. So thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.